I'm Shannon Parks, and I run Parks Audio. And a couple weeks ago I asked if people had any questions that they'd like me to answer on a video, and these are the ones that were sent in. So let's give this a shot here and see if this works out, and if you like it, give me a thumbs up, give me some feedback, give me some more questions. First question. Steve asks, what components are in your reference system? And what music do you use to dial in your designs? I have a pretty simple system. It's in my lab, and I have a Technics SP15 turntable paired with an Audio-Technica ATP12T tone arm, and that's a classic combo that was used in radio stations for many years in the 70s and 80s. And actually my combo is from a FM station from New Jersey, and it's probably played to tens of thousands of people over thousands of hours back in that era, and now it's basically retired in my shop, and I really enjoy it. I have a Denon DL300 cartridge on it. This is an older version of the DL301 and 301 Mark II. It's a low output moving coil, and I think it's just got a very nice tone, very nice balanced sound. Not too bright, not too warm, and that's what I'm listening to right now. I really enjoy it, using it with the Puffin. And then I have that running into a Parasound power amplifier, an HCA 1000, and John Curl designed it probably 20 years ago. It was a discounted Parasound back then, but it's just fantastic. It's a budget amp that you could purchase on eBay for probably $250, 100 watts a channel, and just very good design, very neutral, and it's got a lot of gain adjustment. It has the THX pots on the back to adjust the gain, and I actually use those a lot in my testing in the lab. I usually actually, when I'm testing Puffins before I ship them to Amazon or to customers, I'll usually test them on a Puffin at 40 dB gain with the Parasound cranked, the volume knobs cranked 100%, so I'm getting max gain out of it, and the noise floor of the Parasound's it's very low, very neutral, and that's what I need when I'm doing my test. Have a very neutral system. The speakers then are the Emotiva Air Motive T2s, and that has the dual 8-inch woofers, so really low frequency, and just fantastic, and a bargain at $9.99 shipped a pair. As far as music, I listen to typical old guy classic rock stuff. I don't have anything in particular that I listen to. When I'm doing new designs, I'm listening to lots and lots of records, and records I haven't listened to before. But Joni Mitchell, Court and Spark, I've probably listened to that record more than any other. I know how it sounds. It has a woman's voice, it has acoustic guitar, it has electric guitar, it has sax, it has rock, it has a lot of different elements to it that I feel gives a good test. So that's probably the first and only one that I always use. Otherwise, it's just whatever I feel in the moment. Chris asks, was wondering if you've made any headway into possibly adding pop and click removal to the Puffin. I had a few emails really asking for this. I haven't had too many emails asking for anything else, actually. And I think this would be a pretty killer feature. So I have been working on it, and I'll probably be working on it throughout the winter. But if I do have anything, it probably won't be till spring. And it's just a matter of, even at that time, is it good enough to make an official firmware release with it? So I'll talk more about the pop and click in the future. Either that it crashes and burns and I'm not interested in it anymore due to DSP limitations, or that I just can't come up with a great algorithm that I feel happy with, something that doesn't sound digital, And certainly when I look at those types of algorithms, I do want to do something kind of Steve Wozniak-like. I like the keep it simple, stupid, and do something clever that doesn't really screw things up or use too much processing power. So that's my mind on that, and hopefully I'll come up with some neat work on that. Michael asks, I'm wondering if you can make 78 EQ settings separate from each other, the turnover and the roll-off, so users can have more choices when they adjust to a specific 78 RPM record. Definitely, this is another feature I'd like to add, and it's at the top of the list, and it's probably something that I can get finished a lot sooner than the pop and click feature. The only problem with these adjustable settings right now is right now I have about 13 or 14 different EQ settings right now, and I've normalized all of those at 1 kilohertz. Normalize them to 0 dB, those filters. And that way when you're switching between these different EQ settings, that the gain isn't, they're not going to sound differently other than the difference in the poles and zeros in the filter itself. When you start getting large gain differences switching through that, it can trick the brain into thinking one is better than the other. So if I'm either going to have to maybe do this by hand, and I'd have to just ensure that those are normalized at 1 kilohertz. Maybe once I get into that, I realize that normalization, that I can just be in the ballpark, and plus or minus 1 dB at 1 kilohertz isn't that big of a deal. But this is another thing I'd really like to do, and I think it would add a lot of benefit to the 78 users out there, and I really do want to support them. Jason asks, can you provide a little more info on the ADC DAC, the ADC and DAC measurements on the Puffin? I get a lot of questions about how I do that. It is an analog input. Then I do analog to digital conversion. Then I do DSP on that digital component. And then I take that digital component and then I put it back into the analog realm. And just from the product perspective, there was definitely a benefit to be able to do things in the DSP realm, and also a benefit to just have standard analog inputs and outputs. With those standard, with an analog output, it's very easy to hook the Puffin in with any system, going back to something from the 1960s, or even a brand new powered bookshelf. Those have analog line ins, and without people having to worry about coax or different types of digital connectors and settings. As far as the measurements, at 24-bit sampling, 96 kilohertz, it's the specs are off the charts compared to the analog portion of the Puffin, and then my DSP portion and what I'm doing in the DSP. There's only really one thing I had to overcome on that part of the design, and was I had to make sure I had I had a front-end preamp that would boost the signal high enough that it wasn't that it was up off the noise floor of my ADC, and that was after that. I haven't had to do much thinking or worrying about the measurements or distortion specs or the noise specs with that. In the future, I may have a digital output, but once again, don't hold your breath. That's going to be down the road, but I do like the idea of having the digital output. Barry from Scotland asks, "Love my Budgie, Shannon. Can you send me the schematics in case I need to repair it in the future?" Well, I still support the Budgie 100%. If you ever have a problem, just email me. I'm happy to use the contact form on the website, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, work through any problems. Definitely anybody can send a budgie to me, and I'm going to get it working again and get it back to you as fast as possible. For customers overseas, it's more difficult, and I will definitely, if you're a DIYer and want to repair it yourself or have it repaired locally, I will work with you or your repair person to get it working again. I'll even ship you parts, replacement parts. So want to make sure these budgies last a long time. Quite proud of them, and appreciate all my budgie customers. Adam asks, will you please bring back the budgie? Well, not right now, but it's always a possibility. I even have some ideas about how I would revise the budgie to make it better, easier for me to manufacture. But right now I am completely focused on the puffin, and I just don't have any extra time to do multiple product lines. Many of you know I did step-up transformers and different products before, but just trying to, for one person to support all these different products, it's pretty difficult. So I like being able to focus on one product, and also one product that meets the needs of all my customers. But the budgie, it certainly could come back in the future. Shoda asks, I was wondering if your amazing DIY circuit boards would ever be revived. Quite proud of those PCB designs I did starting back in 2002 with the DIY tube ST35 board, and created several boards over the years: the Get Set Go, the Clementine, some upgrades for Dynaco ST70 and Dynaco Mark III. When I started Parks Audio, I didn't have as much time to dedicate to those PCBs, the support, and also just updating the bill of material and schematics. That requires a lot of work, and there were starting to be a lot of errors in the bill of materials. So I felt like I needed to shut that down. Part of me thinks that I'd like to, once I retire from Parks Audio, I'll go back to my DIY tube designs, because it's a lot of fun making tube amps, and that's something that certainly may happen. Well, thanks a lot for listening, and by all means, if you have more questions, email me, and I'll add them to a new video in the future. All the best to you, and have a good day.